Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. I'm Trevor, and this is our instant reaction for what has been a very entertaining weekend in BYU athletics. Unfortunately, it didn't end the way we wanted it to for football, but it was a very entertaining game nonetheless. BYU pulled out all the stops. I saw some wild action, and the game went to double overtime, which is much more than what many people had predicted. But before we get to that, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, I already did a video last night talking about the wild comeback from women's soccer last night and also the men's basketball game. And then today I want to just acknowledge I didn't actually watch any, but women's basketball came out with another big win, and the women's volleyball ended off their season with a sweep over TCU. So again, more BYU teams getting it done this weekend. But the one that perhaps most of us had our eye on or were watching was the football game, and hoping that BYU could, in fact, punch their ticket to a bowl game. And unfortunately, they came up just a little short. But what a game it was! Want to run through some feedback here, or some notes that I took as I went through and watched the game. And mostly before getting into the game, earlier this week, Adam and I were talking about how really this is a game that if BYU wants to win, obviously you can't have the turnovers and the mistakes, which they did early on, but the defense held strong and did well to recover and make up for the offense, holding Oklahoma State to just a field goal on that turnover in their own territory. But it was also, you can't let Oklahoma State get ahead early, because BYU just isn't really built to come back from those in those types of situations, especially when the opponent is running all over them, which we know Oklahoma State has the ability to do with Ollie Gordon. So they did a good job in getting up early, and they were aggressive, took chances. The onside kick, I mean, that was almost recovered. That was incredible. I think they made the right call. I just think that I don't know if there was indisputable evidence to overturn the call that was on the field, but nonetheless, I love the aggression there, and defense really holding strong and doing their part early on. But what worried me too is that if the defense gets on the field too much, that they're going to wear down, because that's happened. Because we know that maybe we just don't have the depth, especially on teams that just keep running and running and running to wear you down. And it looked like early on that BYU was going to be able to be the one that was the aggressor and wear the other team down, much like I think they did against Oklahoma. So that was a really positive thing. In the second quarter, they had some great stops. They unfortunately couldn't capitalize on it, but at least they flipped the field. And Retzlaff also, this is where I was noticing is, he didn't look very sharp in this game. He had a lot of passes that were just off, and maybe it's the weather. I don't know what it was, but man, it was great to have the full stable of receivers back. That throw and catch by Keanu Hill. So I mean, the throw was a dime, but it was super well defended, and Keanu Hill just caught that, pulled it in, held on tight, and that was just an incredible pass and catch right there. That was amazing. So it was great to have the guys back. The fake punt was awesome. This is the type of stuff we want to see from BYU. I mean, they knew that this was do or die, and they pulled out all the stops early on, and I love it. I love that it was Tyler Batty that caught it, and I don't know what he was thinking with that hurdle, but it was outstanding. Let's see, at the end of that half, that with limited time, they made some shots at the end zone, but they were really just playing for that field goal most likely, and it's unfortunate because they could have used a few more points there at the end of the game. And then the second half, I was a little worried. I was getting a little ahead of myself. I was like, okay, calm down. This game's far from over. Oklahoma State is definitely built to come back from this game, and this team has been through a lot. And they were down early against Houston, and they've been embarrassed once by UCF. I don't think they were going to just roll over and let that happen again, especially with a showing in the conference championship on the line. So that was disappointing because it seemed like BYU really kind of pulled back and was not as aggressive and just really wasn't getting things done. I and I actually didn't get as many notes here on the second half, so I'm sure I'm omitting certain plays and things that I saw, but that's really the gist of it. It felt like BYU kind of tightened up and didn't keep playing to win. They were playing to hold on to the win instead of doing what allowed them to build that win. And Oklahoma State just got all kinds of momentum. Even then, warming up, and you knew Ollie Gordon, if he keeps running on you all game, that he's going to be hard to slow down there at the end of the game, and he was. So I think even then the defense did well. They did come up with some key stops. I mean, if you think about it, Oklahoma State, it still took them. They still didn't score that much over that course of the half. I mean, BYU was up by 2 possessions going into that fourth quarter. So you had to feel good about the position, but nonetheless, it felt like the game was slipping away. So nonetheless, you love the effort. It's disappointing, and in overtime, I felt good about that. I felt like, okay, our D might be able to come up with a stop, but they just looked gassed. And then, that pass to Isaac Rex, what a bummer, because for a historic, a BYU player who's in the history books and has done all that he has for the program to end his career on that and on that loss. It's such a bummer. It's got to be frustrating for him. Hope he, doesn't let that sour things too much, although maybe it'll encourage him to come back for one more year. I'm pretty sure he's got another year of eligibility. We'd love to have him back for another year as we hope that BYU continues to progress in the Big 12. So anyway, it was a really entertaining game. Unlike the Oklahoma game where you left really frustrated because you feel like you left one on the table, you felt like BYU lost that game as much as I mean, you got to give credit to Oklahoma. They did things really well, but feels like BYU made too many errors. Where in this game, it's not that BYU was error free, but it felt like on that second half, just Oklahoma State just really controlled that game. I do admire BYU for being able to get in there and when they were down at the end of the game, not much time on the clock, and go back and kick the field goal. They weren't sure what they were going to do with kicker going forward or this summer coming in when, and I think Will Ferrin has definitely earned that spot. And, the kicks he had looked very, very true. I mean, they were solid and really impressed with him. So you got to feel good about that. Going into overtime, though, I did not feel great with once we got into second overtime. I was going to say this earlier, was getting into 2-point conversions. I did not like our odds there, but we got the stop, and all of a sudden I thought, okay, this is obviously BYU's chance. If we can just get it in the end zone, it all comes down to one play. But unfortunately, they couldn't even do that. So it is a big bummer. It is very disappointing. Did another video earlier this week, though, that BYU still has a chance. There's still some chance that some 5-7 teams will get into bowl games, and I think BYU has a decent chance of being one of those teams if, in fact, there are some slots still open, which a lot of the 5 and 6 teams have been losing. I haven't gone through to check all of them and see where they're at. But so cross your fingers. Hopefully things play out well. I think ESPN likes BYU, so I think there's a chance there to help drive ratings on some of these lower rating, lower interest bowl games there. So anyway, I like to see the progress at the end of the season. Really was heartening as we look to next year. So whether there's a bowl game, sorry, having some technical issues, but yeah, whether there's a bowl game or not, still proud of what they did in the first season in the Big 12 and look to see them continue to build on it. Anyway, we've enjoyed doing these instant reactions after the football game, so we plan on doing this, continue doing this throughout the season for other sports as well. So be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, as you can catch those as well as our other content. And as always, go Cougs!